What's up, mountain bikers? I'm Coach Adam. What the heck happened to February? I mean, I know it's a short month, but did that ever go by fast? We're into March. This is a critical time for you if you're doing BC Bike Race this year. It's time to transfer from the trainer to the trail. We've spent so many months building aerobic fitness, maybe finding some opportunities to squeeze in some base miles here and there, doing our work in the gym, and now it's really time to get outside and capitalize on the improving weather in most areas and the longer daylight hours that are coming as well. When we're on the trainer, we can do very specific work, very focused work. That doesn't always translate to the trail unless we're deliberate about how we do that. So, how do you take that indoor fitness and apply that out into the real world? I look at things on a spectrum. You see, when we're indoors on the trainer, where everything is controlled, we can control the wattage, we can control our heart rate, we can control the temperature in the room, we can control the resistance. When we're outside in the real world, it's kind of chaotic. We can't control any of those things. And that's where we race. So we need performance out there. How do we get from here to there? Well, if we look on the spectrum between over here being the trainer and here being the real world, we've got some points along the spectrum where maybe there's some different types of modalities or different types of training, be that terrain or types of intensity that we can apply to get where we need to be good across more of that range. Now, as an athlete, you've probably got one end of that spectrum where you're stronger than in another part. So like a pure mountain biker who's spent years and years and years riding tons of single track is probably really good over here in the real world. Perhaps somebody who comes from a road background who does a lot of long, steady endurance work is going to be over here. Somebody who spends a ton of time training indoors right here on the trainer. But let's think about how we can be more efficient across a more broad portion of that spectrum. So if you're that pure mountain biker, you probably love mountain biking, but you probably notice that when you get in a situation where there's like a long gravel road climb, you just don't have the power to do that. Conversely, that rider maybe with a road background doesn't do so well on technical single track. They have a hard time transferring that raw power that they have to get to the rear wheel. So we can start to incorporate other elements into our training that maybe we're not quite as good at. So often the real gains lie on the other side of that thing that we're resisting. That's a good metaphor for life too. But more appropriate to training or more focused on training, let's look for opportunities to get outside on the bike in the real world. If you're that pure mountain biker, maybe you want to start doing some of your tempo efforts or threshold efforts on road climbs or on gravel road climbs. If you're that road athlete with that really great FTP, maybe riding more single track, doing some intervals in the real world could be really helpful for you. The other big advantage to doing work outside in the real world is that skill development piece. Whether we've been doing a ton of road miles or we're inside on the trainer or we've been bound by a winter climate, getting outside with the tires in the dirt is critical as we head towards BC Bike Race. So when you're out there in the real world, just simply doing the thing that you're trying to get good at, i.e. mountain biking, is going to really help you develop those skills that you're going to need come that last week of May at BCBR. Now, here's some other cool ways that we can do things. We can actually incorporate deliberate skill development into our workouts. So say I'm doing a set of threshold efforts. If I do those up a climb, maybe it's a gravel road climb, maybe it's a smoother single track climb so I can keep the power output even. And then there's a descent that runs parallel, or I can turn around and go backwards down the same trail I came up. Now I'm creating an environment where I can work on that technical skill, the skills of body position, mobility, braking, cornering, while I'm effectively resting or under load from the effort that I just did. So An example of that specifically could look like 4 minutes effort up a hill, 1 minute descent, really focusing on that body position, mobility, cornering, breaking points. Minute rest, bang, back up. 4 minutes up, minute down. I like to do that workout. It's a workout that works really well across or for athletes across all off-road disciplines, whether you're racing gravel, XC, enduro. Killer workout. The other things that you're going to develop on by doing that are just greater terrain awareness, better line selection, direction control, cornering, as I mentioned. All these things are going to add up to just better fundamental skills. We can also start to incorporate fundamental maneuvers like wheel lifts, bunny hops, wheelies, manuals, things like this into our training at this time of year, just to get kind of back in the groove of riding our mountain bikes. You worked so hard all winter to get fit. You've tuned that engine. Now we need to tune up that suspension and that transmission to build efficiency on the bike. So when you go outside to do those first few mountain bike rides, or when you're incorporating deliberate skill development into your everyday workouts, really be thoughtful and smart about your terrain choices. If you're trying to do, say, zone 2 endurance work on your mountain bike, that can be tricky if you're on really up and down terrain where the power output, the heart rates are not going to be consistent. So if you have some terrain where maybe it's longer, gentler gravel climbs, and then you can just drop into a descent, and whether you do laps or a longer kind of more steady state ride, it is possible to do that zone 2 endurance work on your mountain bike. But you've got to either be really, really fit or smart about it. This is why it's sometimes much more advantageous to do that endurance work on a road bike or a gravel bike where the terrain is a little less severe, and we can control our output a little bit better to stay in that endurance zone 2. Remember, your body will only adapt to the stress that you apply. So as we're building base, as we're getting accustomed to riding outside, really key to remember that we want to make sure that we're varying the stimulus across our training week and essentially breaking down those components of our physiology, training them individually before we go and put all of them together as we will as the race gets closer. What I mean by that is it could be very easy to make the assumption that, hey, I need to do 40 or 50 kilometer very mountainous rides in order to get fit for BC Bike Race. And someone could say, hey, well, I'm just going to go and do that. I'm just going to do back-to-back days of always these rides that just empty the tank. That'll get you fit, but sadly, it's not the most efficient way to get there. So when we break our training into specific workouts, say I do some very explosive hard intervals, VO2 max or above, for one of my key workouts in the week. I do some threshold work for another key workouts. And then I've got the remainder of it being pretty easy endurance miles. That's a very important step to take before we go right into doing these kind of race simulations, which we will get to down the road. When the time comes, of course, it makes sense to have those big, long 4-hour, maybe even 5-hour days with hard efforts embedded within the ride. Those are going to really build durability. Durability is that ability to repeat those hard efforts within the event or within an endurance ride. But remember, true base work got to be at a lower intensity so that we're stimulating the body's ability to utilize fat as fuel, so that we're building that mitochondrial density, we're developing that capillarization within the muscle so that the body runs more efficiently. Be careful of the zone 3 trap. The zone 3 trap is where every ride feels like a little bit hard, always on the gas, out there jamming. I see so many masters athletes and many other athletes making this mistake as well. We're limited on time. We get out there, we've maybe got 90 minutes. So we leave the parking lot and it's on the gas the whole time. You'll get fit, but you'll maximize your benefits from doing this type of workout very quickly. So here's where that structure comes in. Be sure that we're making every effort to polarize our training. so that the majority of our riding is actually pretty easy. But when we do go hard, it's very focused, very deliberate, and intentional. So with BC Bike Race only 12 weeks away, now is the time to get serious. So as you transition from the trainer to the trail, remember, be smart with your terrain choices, be deliberate with your efforts, fuel really well, and have fun out there, folks. I'm Coach Adam Walker. Happy trails.